Hey guys, it's the Kaweah Cat. I'm here on vacation in Indonesia, and my wife and I discovered this place called Playtopia Sports. It's pretty cool. It's got like go-karts, a virtual roller coaster, ice skating rink, basketball, bowling, and interestingly enough for me, a little archery range, a little archery game. So I decided that now would be as good a time as any to explain the basics of archery.
Okay, it was way too loud in that mall, so instead we're back here in the apartment where it's only kinda loud because my nieces are playing in the other room. Okay, first of all, I do not claim to be very good at this. I took archery as an elective back in college for one semester, and much like most electives that you can take back in college, at the end of it I just sort of realized, I can probably sum up everything that I learned in like a few minutes, so here we go. I'm gonna break this down into 5 steps. Number 1, eyes. Number 2, bow hand. Number 3, draw hand. Number 4, anchor point. Number 5, release. And that's it. So number 1, eyes. Now you might not know this, but you in all likelihood have a dominant eye, the same way that you have a dominant hand or a dominant foot. A lot of people I know who are all right-sided or all left-sided, or some people are freaks like me, where left foot, right-handed, left-eyed. So here's how you tell. You're going to look away from you and you're going to pick a point. It doesn't need to be a big point or a small point, just something that you can identify as a spot. And then once you've picked a point, you're just going to take your hands and make some kind of hole in front of you. It can be a triangle if that's what you're more comfortable with. It can be a square, it can be a round, it doesn't really matter. But you're going to put something right in the middle, at least as near as your eyes can tell. Then open and close your eyes alternatively, and you're going to see that object move from side to side. And whichever side has that object closer to the center, that's your dominant eye. And that means that for archery, even though I'm right-handed, I have to shoot a bow left-handed. So this concept of having a dominant eye and having that dominant eye supersede your dominant hand, that rings true for firearms too, to a certain extent. One thing that is always true is that there are more right-handed people than there are left-handed people, and that means that most bows and firearms are going to be made for right-handed people. Funny thing, you should go back and watch Saving Private Ryan and watch Jackson, the sniper. He uses a bolt-action Springfield rifle, and like most bolt-actions, it's bolted to the right side, and it's designed for you to shoot and then kung. But Jackson, probably because he's left-eye dominant, fires it the entire movie from the left side, left-handed. And that means that the bolt action actually is kind of awkward for him to manage and creates a much more dramatic motion than he would otherwise have to do. I always thought it was a cool detail that this guy who is so obviously left side dominant is using a rifle that's built for right-handed people and just being badass with it anyway the entire movie. Yeah, once you know your dominant eye, you're going to want to get a bow that favors that. Most bows, like the ones that you might see in Skyrim, are ambidextrous. But a lot of the modern bows that we see today have a dominant side built into them. They have like a little notch where you're supposed to rest the arrow. So this brings us to our next subject, our bow hand. For me, it's my right hand. For you, it might be your left hand. This is a chopstick, and it is going to be a bow and arrow alternatively during this presentation. Number 1 thing about your bow hand, you want this thing to be straight up and down. You don't want any of this or this. Even though that looks real cool and Hawkeye shoots like this, all that's for the movies. It doesn't really ring true in real life or in competition. You generally want to hold that sucker straight up and down. So here's something. I want you to put your hands out in front of you like you were holding a bow, whichever bow, your right hand, left hand, doesn't matter. Put them out like that. Something you're probably going to notice is that your elbows are pointing down. And because your elbows are pointing down, you've got this big old honking piece of forearm sticking right there. Right here, be right in there. When you are shooting a bow, that's where the string is going to want to come past to launch the arrow. And so something that you want to practice doing is, instead of having your elbow pointing down where this big chunk of forearm gets in the way, turn your elbow the same direction as your knuckles. So my knuckles are going that way, now my elbow is going that way too. And it's a bit of a trick that some people have a lot of problem with it. It can feel very awkward, especially in the shoulders and upper arm. But coming from here and getting to there helps you a lot. A lot of archers, even like when they're holding the arrow, holding the bow, kind of hold it loose, like this almost.
So You see, this mark here is actually from getting slapped by the string because I wasn't able to get my forearm out of the way of the string as it came through. This is why a lot of professional archers use a bracer, or in fantasy you often hear about archers with a bracer or something around their wrist. You often want some kind of thumb guard because the arrow is going to be sitting right there, or you want some kind of bracer to protect your forearm from getting slapped by the string as the string comes past.
But some of the cheap ones that you can buy are really, like, they only cover this. They don't actually cover anything else. They just cover the place where you're going to get smacked. So now you've got your bow out here, and you got your forearm meat out of the way. This brings us to step 3, the draw hand. First, you want to knock your arrow. The arrow is going to have a little notch on the end of it that either looks like a V, the old-fashioned ones, and it's going to sit on the string like that, or it's going to have a little bit of a grip to it, and you kind of boom, and it's going to sit right there, so it actually kind of holds onto the string as it moves back and forth. The arrow will normally be held between the index and middle finger, and you will generally have 3 fingers on the string itself. Fork, you can do that if there's a very heavy draw, but sometimes doing that increases the chances of twisting the string as you're pulling it back, and that can lead to, again, like warping of the bow and just a less accurate shot, because that's very important for the release, and that's something we're going to talk about in a second. Yeah, when you're holding the string, you do not want to have your fingers around it like this. You want it to be more towards the ends of your fingers, right at the end, and just you can let it slip off. So now you're pulling back and you've got to get to your anchor point. Now if you're just starting, your anchor point might be here on your chest. If you haven't developed the strength to pull the bow back that far, you might be right here. If you are, like a lot of the professionals and the Olympic level archers tend to take their thumb and put it up under their chin, kind of, like not under the chin, the jaw, back here. And when they are in this position, if you see in the photos of them, the string is right up, pressing their nose, pressing their lips and chin. They're right up on that sucker, so they can look right down the line of that arrow, like that. However, for me, I've always found that I actually kind of prefer it back here behind the ear, so that I'm holding the string more like this. That's just where I tend to find it, but it doesn't really matter where the anchor point is per se. It's more about whether or not you can be consistent with it. Consistency is the key. Consistency is the key way more than accuracy is the key, because if I shoot an arrow and I miss 3 inches to the right and 2 inches up, then that means that in the future I just need to aim a little to the left and a little bit down. If I'm hitting that spot every single time, if I'm consistent with it, then I can make an adjustment. But if I'm not consistent, then I never know which adjustment to make. In fact, if I'm hitting the same spot every single time, even though that's not necessarily the spot that I'm aiming at, then I can just add a sight that makes the adjustment for me. Now finally, the last thing we want to talk about is the release. And the release is probably the most difficult or most zen part of this entire process, because it's kind of difficult to explain. It's so difficult that a lot of times professional archers, game hunters, those kinds of people don't even use a manual release. They use like a little, not electronic, but it's a mechanical release, where it's like they have a little thing that's attached to the string, and then they flip a switch or press a button and it lets go of the string for them, because it is very difficult, because you got the sling on the end of your fingers, all your fingers are different lengths, and you're trying to get them out of the way of the string without interfering with the action of the string. So how do you do that? Well, the big thing is, don't try to let go of the string. The string is always going to pull out of your hand faster than you can physically let go of it. The string is faster than your fingers, so you don't want to actually try to let go of it. If you do that, then you're more likely going to interfere and cause some kind of wobble with it, or it's going to come off sideways like that. What you want to do is try to get it right to the end, and you can almost let it surprise you. The best shots I've ever had, the best releases, are ones where it almost feels like it comes loose a split second before I intended it to come loose. And it kind of just comes off the end. So now, you know which eye you're aiming with, you know which arm you're holding with it, you got your forearm out of the way, you have the arrow in the correct position, knocked onto the string, you've pulled back, you have an anchor point, and you know what you should be feeling on the release is sort of this not a boom. And that's pretty much it. Those are the basics. I have now taken you from having never shot an arrow to having shot an arrow. This is what my target looked like by the end, and this is my wife demolishing my high score. She is way better at this than me, and she has been practicing not nearly as long, so, you know, them's the breaks.
Oh my god.
Archery is one of those things where the smallest little details can make a huge difference. And because of that, there's always little ways that you can get better at it. And if you want to know some of those ways, maybe find someone more qualified.